Republicans in the House are clearly looking at the polling and realizing that ICE is a politically toxic issue for them. And it is why one Republican is revolting against Donald Trump and Mike Johnson and moving for some real accountability. But it is not just House Republicans who are thinking about the midterms when it comes to ICE, because Donald Trump is as well. And that is the story that Chris Murphy just broke about, how Donald Trump is trying to use ICE to steal the midterms, not to just intimidate us at polling stations, but to steal our votes before they're counted. We are going to get into the Republican revolting against Donald Trump in the House, but we have to start with this breaking story that explains everything happening in Minneapolis right now. It is about Epstein. It's about the horrible economic numbers, but it is also very much about stealing this upcoming election. Senator Murphy broke it all down before we get into what's happening in the House.
It's fucking awful, the inhumanity of this. We cannot fund ICE as it is constituted today. But we found out something else really important today. Pam Bondi sent a letter to state officials in Minnesota in which she made a list of demands for ICE to leave Minneapolis. And one of those demands was that the state turn over its voter rolls to the federal government. This has never been about public safety. Minneapolis is a much less safe place today because ICE is there. This is likely about trying to rig and steal the election. Donald Trump is wildly unpopular. He is not committed to democracy. And he knows the only way that his movement is to retain power, the only way that his corporate allies retain power, his billionaire allies retain power this November, is for Trump to steal the election. And so he's saying to Minneapolis, if you don't give me control of the voter rolls, then ICE isn't leaving. And you can see that if he gets away with it in Minnesota, he's likely going to try it in places like Philadelphia and Phoenix, other key cities in swing states. So understand why it's so important for us to draw a line. I have been arguing all weekend that the Senate should not pass funding for the Department of Homeland Security. First and foremost, because this is a rogue agency that is operating outside of the law and is killing American citizens. But also because the underlying game here may be to steal the 2026 election. And no senator, but in particular no Democratic senator.
They just laid it all out. Donald Trump wants to steal your votes before they are even counted. And if they can do it in Minneapolis, if they can do it in Minnesota, they will do it everywhere. They will say that there is fraud, that there is crime, that there are drugs in Chicago, in Milwaukee, in Atlanta, in Detroit. They will go into these major metropolitan areas and they will remove you from the voter rolls. They won't tell you. And then they'll say that it's fraud. They'll use it as an excuse. They'll prosecute you. They'll come to your door. They won't let you register. I don't know. Anything's possible at this point. Anything is possible. Donald Trump understands how deeply unpopular he is. He understands that he has to distract and deflect. He also knows he has to destroy trust in every single institution, but especially elections, if he wants to be able to militarize our cities, weaponize the government, go after me and you, and prevent elections. That is what they fundamentally want, at the same time as they want to tell us that one of the best blue states and cities to live in the United States is a hellhole. It is because the broad and successful social programs in Minnesota and Minneapolis that Donald Trump is there as well. He wants to lie to you in so many different ways, but it is blatant corruption. This is criminality. They cannot get away with it. We understand what they are doing. It is obvious. It's almost as if they want us to know what they are doing. This is blatant. This is dictatorship. It will only get worse. This is why the Senate needs to ensure they do not spend another dollar funding DHS. It is a tool for Donald Trump to steal elections. And Pam Bondi is just telling us that. But there is so much more happening underneath the surface. There is so much more information we need to know about what is happening in our government right now. It is why we need accountability. And it is why we need to bring in every single ICE agent, every single thug who is beating people up, threatening to put you on a terrorist watch list for recording them taking people's lives, and especially The leaders of that organization, those organizations, which is what one Republican in the House is doing, revolting against Trump and Mike Johnson. House Homeland Security Committee Chair Andrew Garbarino, a Republican from New York, is now asking leaders of ICE, CBP, and USCIS to testify at a full committee hearing, according to the Washington Examiner. Now I know that some people might already be commenting, this doesn't do anything. This doesn't mean anything. Republicans are still spineless. And yeah, Republicans are still spineless. But what I can say is that this is the second New York Republican in a competitive district to take some sort of stance on ICE that is combative to the administration, although it had to be dragged out of him. Mike Lawler, who is in one of the most competitive seats in the country, last night condemned Donald Trump for detaining a 5-year-old and for J.D. Vance lying about it. And this is a real act of accountability. Making sure that they have to testify before Congress means if they don't, then the same thing that is happening right now to Bill and Hillary Clinton being charged with contempt, refusing to come into Congress. What happened to Steve Bannon? What happened to so many Trump stooges who thought that they would get off scot-free but ended up serving prison time? That is what is going to happen to Kristi Noem, to Greg Bellino, to all of these ICE thugs, their leaders, the little SS agents. This is what's going to happen. There will be real accountability. It is incredibly important that we build political power. That is what is happening in Minneapolis right now. It is why the community was able to push Mayor Fry and Governor Walz to call on the National Guard. Something that should have happened weeks ago. But they finally did to protect those who are protesting in solidarity with now 2 Americans who were killed. Should have happened weeks ago. But that's the type of pressure that we have to put out there. And it is also the type of pressure that comes from people sharing their stories. And that is exactly what we saw today. And a statement that is just heartbreaking. The family of Alex Pretty, who had his life stolen from him by ICE today, wrote, "We are heartbroken, but also very angry. Alex was a kind-hearted soul who cared deeply for his family and friends, and also the American veterans whom he cared for. As an ICU nurse at the Minneapolis 5th A Hospital, Alex wanted to make a difference in the world. Unfortunately, he will not be with us to see his impact. I do not throw around the hero term lightly. However, his last thought and act was to protect a woman. The sickening lies told about our son by this administration are reprehensible and disgusting. Alex is clearly not holding a gun when attacked by Trump's murdering and cowardly ICE thugs. He has his phone in his right hand, and his empty left hand is raised above his head while trying to protect the woman. ICE just pushed down all while being pepper sprayed. Please get the truth out there about our son. He was a good man. Thank you. He was a VA nurse, and his last act was protecting a woman. A VA nurse. That is how Donald Trump treats all of us. That is how his thugs will treat all of us. There is no reform. It is defund, abolish, scrap, and start from zero. There is no reforming. These broken people who deserve to be put in jail, hauled before Congress, to be condemned, cross-examined, and publicly humiliated for their crimes and hauled off to prison. That is not an exaggeration. That is not a wild threat. That is what we need to do to restore order in our country. They talk about restoring order by causing chaos. How about we take those who want to see our country ripped apart and maybe we remove them? Maybe that's what we need to do. Because I can't imagine any action that shows hate for America more than murdering in cold blood a VA nurse, someone who protected our heroes, who was a hero himself. That is Donald Trump's administration. And anyone who will not come out in full force against that cannot be a part of a movement to fix that. They are the physical manifestation. It is an amalgamation of the worst parts of Donald Trump. That is what ICE is. That is fundamentally what ICE is about. And we have to stop it. They are out there to divide, to conquer, to cause chaos, to cause a pretext for Donald Trump to carry out an assault on our nation. That is what this is about. They will strip you of your freedom. They will strip you of their rights. They will strip you of your vote. And they will police the streets, telling you you can't carry to protect yourself. I do not want to live in that country. And we have to talk and fight and message against it. It's what AOC did so perfectly right here.
We must use our freedom of assembly And what we are seeing here right now is an administration that is deeply afraid of its own unpopularity. We must remember that we outnumber them. Donald Trump is less popular than he has ever been before. The Republican Party is on its back heels. They are afraid on multiple different fronts. The economy is doing worse than it has ever been doing in recently. They are afraid because they are exposed. They are afraid of being genuinely exposed by what is happening in the Epstein files. You have the economy, and they are trying to use these as flashpoints to divide us instead of all of the things that unite us.
They want us divided. We have to be united against these fascists. That is what they are. We cannot treat them like political opposition because it means so much more than that. This is not another party. This is a domestic terror organization, and that is how we have to treat them. That is how bluntly I will put it on this show. I can promise you that much. And if you want to support, that is always, you can hit that subscribe button. Leave a like on this video. If you stuck around at the end, drop a blue heart in the comments because we are going to keep on fighting. We're not going to let him silence us. And until next time, y'all, I'll see you soon.